What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome in. OUA show week 7. Wade Zanketta, Connor O'Neill here. We had a massive week of OUA games, but now we are getting into the playoffs. We will talk about how that is going to shake down, but we got to tell you how we got to the playoffs first off.
And that's going to start in the nation's capital on Thursday night, where we saw the Carleton Ravens and the Ottawa GGs face off for the second time this year at TD Place. The GGs this time not lacking any offensive production as they jump out to a quick 17-point first quarter. But Carleton would not go away. They slowly started to piece away and get back into it until Ben Miracle, second rushing touchdown of the game in the fourth quarter, iced it for the GGs.
Yeah, he certainly did. Big day on the ground from Ben Miracle, and he did what we wanted him to do. He didn't do too much. He took what was there. He played solid football, and it is always a battle when Ottawa and Carleton get together in TD Place. We know how that turns out. Also, let's shout out Daniel Oladejo real quick for that absolute moss in the end zone. Moss.
Yes. Wow. What a throw. What a catch. Oladejo just kind of went up, picked it, and said, no, thank you. That's mine. Play-by-play. Could have used a little bit more juice on that one for such a big grab, but doesn't take away from the magnitude of the catch and the GGs in that moment. On the other side, Glodin Malali came to play 5 receptions, 99 yards on the day, no touchdowns. But both of these teams had to wait until Saturday to find out their playoff matchups.
Yeah, they certainly did, but we won't spoil it just yet. We'll move on to the next game. To the capital of the province we go, Toronto, the 6. Man, your varsity Blues had their way with the York Lions, 41-7, and Ethan McKinnon had a huge day on specials for the varsity Blues.
Not just Ethan McKinnon on special teams, but there were 3 total special teams touchdowns for the Blues. Cody Hale scooped up a blocked punt. Ethan McKinnon, the punt return touchdown, as you mentioned, and Lucas Stoikos in the fourth quarter housed a kick return for a touchdown. So they took advantage of York's special teams, which has been poor all season. I feel like poor is even being generous. I mean, how many kicks did they have blocked this year that we've seen? And it's just not a recipe for success at all. I mean, it's essentially a turnover, but it's a turnover in the worst way because it's so deflating. Like, that's supposed to be your chance to flip the field, get some life, and block punt all season long. But for Toronto, the offense didn't even have to do much in this game. Once they had the 2 special teams touchdowns, it was just kind of like manage the game, kill the clock. It was pouring rain, so Clay finished with about 120 yards, I think, 2 touchdowns. Not a single receiver went over 50 yards, though. And Adam Williams just shy of the 100-yard mark on the ground.
Yeah, wet day certainly made it tough offensively for both teams. But hey, I mean, when your special teams units are playing like the way that the varsity Blues unit was playing, and you're getting block kicks, you're getting 2 touchdowns, that is surely a recipe for a win in bad weather. York, man, like I know you talked about it already, but I just want to say, like, yeah, this is something that was an issue all season. It's not like it was something that, crept up on them and, they had a block kick against Toronto this week. No, it was like week in, week out, you were having kick blocks, and it's just, I don't get how you don't address it, or maybe they did, and it comes down to execution. I don't know. But either way, moving into the next season, that is something that you're going to need to focus on.
And before we move on and talk about the OU East playoff breakdown, I want to give a shout out to Malcolm Campbell. He was all over the field and all up in that backfield. 2 sacks on the day, countless quarterback hits. The veteran defensive end, the captain of this defense, he led the way for them in that front 7 in a big way, and it helped with that defensive performance. The OUA East is going to look like this next weekend. Carleton Ravens heading down to Kingston with a matchup against the Queens Gales. Meanwhile, Ottawa heading out to Toronto for a matchup against the Varsity Blues. So we've got 2 week 1 rematches in this up and coming game. This will be the 3rd time that Carleton faces Queens. The last time didn't go so well for them. But Ottawa will have to make their 2nd trip to Toronto this year.
Yeah, going to be a tough game for the GGs who have to travel to Toronto. It's going to be a long road trip for them. And they're facing a hot varsity Blues team. For Carleton, I mean, Queens has had their way with them twice now. Close game the first time around at the start of the season, 45 rip the second time around for those Gales. I mean, how do you see this one shaking out for these two teams? Let's preview it a little bit if we could. Quick one.
I think you're going to see Queens take the life out of the ball early, and then mid-second quarter, all of a sudden it's going to be a fireworks show. You're just going to see James Keenan letting it rip all over the park.
Over Rashid on the ground.
Yeah, no, I think they'll have to come back to it in the second half, like late third, early fourth, when they're trying to crush clock. But I think that they're going to just kind of open it up. I don't know. They've got a bye week to implement all this extra stuff, work on what they're doing well. And I mean, it never hurts to hand Rashid the ball, but against the Ravens, they didn't really need it last time. They had so much defensive work. So I could see them just opening it up. They had a big touchdown in the first game against them from Keenan. He played very well both games against Carleton. I just have a feeling it's going to be number 7 in gold, blue, and red carrying the team this week.
Add some bye week wrinkles to the playbook and come out absolutely slinging.
Yeah.
All right, let's move.
Ottawa, last time they played, we talked about this in week 1 in our recap. They didn't really try to run the ball. I expect a complete different scenario this time. I think JP is going to be a workhorse for them. It's going to be tough to limit Toronto's chances offensively. Clay's had a very low completion percentage, but like Marsh and I talked about the week you were off, the inverse relationship always has its bounce back where they finally just start clicking. And I think that's what you're going to see from Toronto this week. When they get the chances, they're going to hit them.
Yeah, I think we're going to see something similar to what we saw in week 1, where it was just a grinding battle between the two teams. Well, obviously, I think there's going to be a little bit better football being played. It was week 1, but I think we're going to see that type of game. Like, it's going to be a very close game where these teams are really just throwing haymakers at each other, and whoever lands the last one is going to win.
And let's move into the OUA West, where we had some wild games. We're going to start out at the far end with Western and Windsor. Western did Western things, but not in a typical Western manner. If you're following how many Westerns I'm saying, 66-0 win over the Windsor Lancers, who were undefeated at home entering yesterday.
Yeah, so that's the part that sounds like Western, but now I'll let you take it away with why Western wasn't really Western, but won still in Western fashion.
Keon Edwards, not a big factor, 15 for 65 on the day, no touchdowns, but Trey Humes just scored everything for them. So he is back. He had 3 touchdowns on the day. I think he only had like 30 yards, but 3 touchdowns. 30-point first quarter, though, opened this up for Western, and it was all because of the defense. Early on, we had Deontay Knight scoop and score, which kind of set them up. They finished the game 7 sacks, 2 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, 2 INTs, and touchdown that I mentioned. And then they also forced a safety just on a 3rd down, kneel down punt.
Savon Magne-Jones, massive day as well.
Savon Magne-Jones has been huge for the Mustangs this year. And while everyone focuses on Keon Edwards, you know what this kind of reminds me of? NFL, think of the Tennessee Titans, where they have Derrick Henry and they just pound the rock. All of a sudden it's, play action, A.J. Brown over the top. Instead of A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry, it's Keon, play action, Savon Magne-Jones, deep ball. It's so unstoppable.
It is. It really is. And when you watch Western play, you can almost kind of tell when they're setting up for it. And it doesn't matter because they're still going to hit it. Like you'll see, like it really doesn't. When you watch Western play, you're like, okay, off tackle, inside zone, kind of like an outside bounce run. Oh, they're going to take a shot here. Just wait. And then they take the shot. Guess what? Everybody knows it's coming. And Savon Magne-Jones still takes it to the house. Like it works so well. Their offense is just so well executed. I am scared for teams that have to play this Western team in the playoffs. I mean, Western in the playoffs is just something that you don't want to have to face. And Coach Burt said it, the playoffs run through Western.
And when you're looking at Western and Windsor this year, I mean, Windsor, They had the 2-game homestand where they toppled 2 top 10 teams. But outside of that, it's been blowout, 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 blowout. And for all the top 10 talk that they received after the second week, kudos to the U Sports voters for holding firm in this and saying, no, this is not a top 10 team in the country. This is a rare circumstance. So on that, though, Western 66 points. Like, this was, I had multiple games going. I checked in on Western like shortly after kickoff. Deontay Knight touchdown. I was like, oh, okay, this is a great start. That's going to be a problem if the defense is scoring touchdowns before Keon Edwards even touches the field. Turned out it wasn't Keon, but Trey Humes. But this defense is ready to play. Austin Fordham-Miller, Deontay Knight, Kojo Odum, Rory Kelly, guys left, right, and center, and they are going to be a tough team to take down.
They are going to be a tough team to take down. The team that is going to try to do that just had a huge bounce back game in the Battle of Waterloo, number 2. The Warriors came out swinging in this one, 36-8 win over the Golden Hawks. But let's hold the phone here. A lot of these points came late in the game, like late in the game.
Yeah, they finished the game with 25 unanswered points in the fourth quarter, including all 3 of Trey Ford's touchdowns. He put the backpack on. We said in our preview, we said on the Thursday episode, can Trey Ford do it? Can he put the backpack on? Can he carry this team into the postseason when they need him to the most? And my God, did he ever. 290 yards through the air, 97 on the ground, and 3 touchdowns passing. Wow. That is the Trey Ford standard that he has set for himself over his career. And we haven't seen it much this year because it has really, quite frankly, been the year of the run game with the year off and all the inconsistencies passing. But Trey Ford put on a show.
Yeah, he gave us a resounding yes. Other sideline, though, this is kind of what we said, right? Like we said, Laurier needed to take the ball away, take the field away, play solid defense, squeeze the life out of the Warriors, and they did. But we also said that they needed to finish out the game, much like they didn't do against Western. And what happens again in this one? Fourth quarter, Trey Ford and the Warriors have 25 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. Like that can't happen. Laurier is too good of a football team, in my opinion, to allow things like that to happen. They had too good of a defense this season. You can't, if you're a team on the brink looking to cut the playoffs, you cannot get 25 points dropped on you in the fourth quarter and not have anything to say about it. You can't get 25 put up on you and not answer them.
And when we look at this one, though, I mean, the Laurier offense, it was Cavante Bailey and then a whole bunch of what's going on here, because they only mustered 69 yards on the ground as a team. They didn't get Ante Egovan much over 50 yards. Michael Reed on the Waterloo defense had 2 interceptions on the day. For Connor Carasello, it was just like a clunky game, I almost want to say. Like, they had their moments when they drive the field and he looks sharp and he's rolling out and throwing the ball well on the run, but then you'd have a pick or you'd have a stall out. And it's just kind of that clunkiness that kind of led, I think, the Laurier defense to be a little bit tired. I mean, wouldn't you be after chasing around Trey Ford for 45 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, when you're spending most of your time on the field for 3 quarters of football, I totally understand that you gas out, you wear out. You need to get some help from the offensive side of the ball. I totally agree with that. But man, Waterloo in this one, fourth quarter, just looked like the team that we wanted them to be for the entire season.
Electric, I think, is the word that we wanted them to be. And they've had their moments, they've had their flashes, but we haven't seen it for a certain amount of time consistently. And it felt like that fourth quarter, they put it together, drive after drive after drive. And I know it's just a small sample size in the fourth quarter, but this is what they do. And is this what we wanted? Is this what they were supposed to be this year? Or does Trey Ford just own the Laurier Golden Hawks?
A little bit of both. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that one. That's a tough one. But this year, certainly Trey Ford owns the Laurier Golden Hawks. 2 wins in both versions of the Battle of Waterloo this year. Let's go to the final game, though.
This one was a big one. It was very back and forth, very big defensive match. Guelph at McMaster. McMaster rocking their all black unis, which when I first turned on the TV, I was like, I don't really know how I feel about these. But as I watched the game, the more I was like, okay, yeah, the burgundy kind of goes, or I guess the maroon, they officially call it the maroon. The maroon does really go with the black. The white piping's nice. Yeah, these jerseys are clean, but it would be so much nicer if they did it at night.
Yes.
McMaster, I am a fan of the jerseys, but let's bring them out for a home game after dark next year. They ended up winning this one, though, 27-22.
Yeah, it was a good game for the McMaster Marauders, doing what they needed to do, coming out, getting a win to try to give themselves a chance to get into the playoffs, and a big win over a good Guelph team. We said as of late, Sean Law has been turning it on. Keandre Smith and Clark Barnes have looked unstoppable recently, and that defense has solidly been one of the best in the OUA. But guess what? McMaster says, we don't care. We're not listening. We don't buy any of that nonsense. And they just came out and they played McMaster football. It was relatively turnover-free football from Andreas Dueck. He had a pretty good game. Justice Allen found the end zone for them as well. So there's a lot of things going right for McMaster in this one. They played, I think this is the best. I mean, you can feel free to disagree with me, but I think that this was the best we had seen McMaster play all season. The most complete we had seen McMaster play all season.
I don't want to say the most complete. I don't know. For this season, yes, this is one of the more complete games they've had. I thought their game bouncing back from Windsor was much nicer too. But for Andreas Dubeck, 15 of 34 for 213 in an offense which stresses such high volume and high efficiency, he's down below 50% again. Like that's to me the main marker for their success. If he can get clicking and get some of these high percentage throws going, then they're going to start to move the ball more. They're going to start to put up more points, and they're not going to be reliant on Jackson Cooling housing a big play. Like this game was 11-12 entering the fourth, and all of a sudden it was Jackson Cooling 70-yard touchdown from Andreas Dueck. Oh, okay. So from that, like they were able to kind of pin Guelph deep, and Guelph tried to go for it and didn't end up working. But the 70-yard touchdown from Jackson Cooling really sealed this game, because it was touchdown game already, and Guelph had to start swinging for the fences.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then what does McMaster do? It's their defense. And the one thing that I do respect about Mac is they get stops on D when they really need it. That's a good, solidly coached defensive scheme. But Mac sneaks the win. And what does this mean for the playoffs?
Just want to give a quick shout out before we get there. Keandre Smith had 10 for 123 in the game. And he also had 102 punt return yards. I thought there was one point in this game, Mac had a short kick that he caught on the 50. I thought he was gone. He caught it in stride, like scooped it before it hit the ground. I thought Keandre Smith was housing it. I was like, oh, this is game, because it was right before McMaster opened it up. But unfortunately, he didn't. Guelph's offense could not reach the end zone, and McMaster turned it around. But in the OUA West, after some confusion, because I had tweeted out the playoffs and the playoff matchups according to what each team had posted, because some teams like Waterloo had said, hey, we're at Guelph next week. So I figured, okay, well, Western's in, Laurier's in, Waterloo's playing at Guelph. Let's go with our matchups that we know. Then the OUA had to correct themselves because they didn't know their full playoff scenario. There was just some trick in the three-way tiebreaker that worked itself out at the last second. So here's what we ended up with. Waterloo at Western in London, Guelph at Laurier.
Those are going to be some tough scenarios, especially Waterloo Western, man. Waterloo is going to have to travel to Western, which nobody wants to do. It should be a fun game, though. If we get fourth quarter Waterloo for all four quarters against Western, it should be a battle. It should be tight. But the key word in that sentence is if we get fourth quarter Waterloo.
Don't forget, this is the same Waterloo Western matchup that we saw last week, where
Didn't go
Western
so well.
dominated from the jump on the road. I'm expecting this to be a wild game, much like you are, but it's going to be Western running away with it and Trey Ford trying to play catch up and keep
Yeah.
up, I guess.
Yeah. And, that's the game that I kind of see as well. But I don't think it'll be as one sided as the last time around. Playoff football is just different.
And this last game, I honestly think this is the game of the week. Laurier
Yeah.
at Guelph, for me at least, because I love defensive football.
No, I agree.
This is going to be a slugfest. It's going to be, we're going to knock you in the mouth. You are going to knock us in the mouth. It's going to be whose defense folds first. Because this Laurier defense is going to be pissed that they gave up 25 unanswered in the fourth. Guelph, not going to be happy with their performance. As dominant as their front seven was all day, they still gave up 27 points, still lost the game, and as a result, have to go on the road this week. Neither of these teams are going to be happy with their performance, and it's going to breed some angry football.
This this kind of reminds me of like the Spider-Man meme / GIF where the two Spider-Mans are pointing at each other. Yeah, because that's exactly what it feels like, doesn't it? Like Laurier and Guelph just feel like two almost identical teams in this one. They kind of play
All
similar
quarterback
styles.
with big arm.
Yeah.
Explosive downfield threats at receiver. Cavante Bailey, Ante Agovin, Keandre Smith, Clark Barnes. Lights out defenses. Freak linebackers. AJ Allen, Tommy Bringy. I mean, yeah, this is the Spider-Man meme of the week.
It is. It is. These are two very similar style teams. So I expect, like you said, this is just going to be shot after shot after shot, haymaker after haymaker. Like this might be the game that I'm most excited for. Actually, no, it is the game that I'm most excited for.
I gotta reserve my words on that one because I have a team that's in the playoffs for the first time since the 90s that, is also hosting a playoff game. So I have some excitement in other places in the province, but this is certainly going to be the matchup of the week.
For sure. For sure. That's it. We're at week 7, regular season wrapped up. We got the playoffs coming up next, though, so we're not going anywhere. We still have like 3-4 more weeks of football, and we are super excited for it. But we're done for today, at least. You'll catch us again on Thursday when we bring you, we kind of did it today, but we're going to bring you a full preview for the games on Thursday. So check that out. And you can always catch us on social media.
At Wade Zank, at Connor R. O'Neill, at CF Perspective. Enjoy your week. We will talk to you at the end of it as we gear up for playoff football in the OUA.